मुखं करोति वाचालं भङ्गं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारणं परमानन्दं माधवम्. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for joining. So, also sorry about the last minute poll. I just wanted to make sure that we have some kind of a quorum. So I'm happy that that you're all there. So last time we had ended at 6:14:4, and just to set the context, the previous chapter, it ended with Indra killing Vritrasur. And then what followed was the penances of Indra. So Parishit Maharaj sees the exalted position of Vritrasur, and he inquires from Sukhdev Goswami. So we are resuming from verse 5, and he's building to the point where he is talking about the rarity of devotional service. So this 6:14:5 is a very famous verse, which is kind of the culmination of his inquiry from Sukdev Goswami. Muktanaam api siddhanam narayana parayana sadurlabha prashantatma kotishvapi mahamune. O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayana or Krishna. Such devotees who are fully peaceful are extremely rare. So beginning from the verse 3, Parishit Maharaj has been successively building about the rarity of bhakti. Right? So in the third verse, he says Rajubhi Samaha Sankyataha, that the jivas are unlimited like atoms. And so he starts with the first pool, saying that there are literally millions and billions of jivas. Like atoms are beyond the ability of one to count. Then later on in the same verse, he says Manuchadhyaha, that of these millions of jivas who are innumerable like atoms, very few have the human form of life. And then he says Shreha, that of the millions who have human forms of life, very few are inclined to pious activity, karmis essentially. Right? So they are karmis, but pious. They avoid the sinful activities, act according to the scriptures. They're interested in following dharma. Then in the next verse 4, he says mokshavas, that of the millions and millions of karmis, very few of them are gyanis. So mumukshvas essentially means those who are interested in getting liberation from the material world. Gyanis, right? So very few are gyanis. Of this, he says muchyata. Of the millions and millions of gyanis, very few are muchyata, means who actually achieve liberation, giving up material attachment. Then he says siddhyati, of the millions and millions of muchyatas, that is the millions and millions of those who have achieved liberation, very few are siddhas. So siddhas are those who understand the true meaning of liberation. The true meaning of liberation means beyond just the merging. And then finally he says that of the millions and millions of siddhas, very few are Narayana Parayana, which is devotees. So beginning from a count of the unlimited jivas, very few have the human form of life. Of them, very few are interested in following dharma. Of them, very few of them are interested in liberation. Of them, very few actually achieve liberation. Of them, very few understand the true meaning of liberation. Of them, very few are devotees. 6 degrees of separation. So, Parishit Maharaj is working through this to establish the rarity of bhakti and is surprised at seeing it manifest in the most unlikely place, which is in Vritrasura. Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada also takes these stages and maps them to the Varnashram, right? More so to the ashrams than the Varnas. So he says that typically the Grihasthas will reach the stage of Shreya. So Shreya is the pious karmkandis, those who follow the religious principles for material gains. The vanaprasthas are the mukshvas. So these are the jnanis who desire liberation. The Prabhupada says that when one understands the futility of materialistic way of life, one becomes advanced in knowledge and therefore situates himself in the vanaprastha order, unattached to the family, wife, and children. Then the next stage, which is the muchyata, Prabhupada says is the practicing sannyasi. So the practicing sannyasi is one who understands the true meaning of liberation. And Prabhupada says one should then further progress to the platform of sannyas, the actual renounced order, never to fall again and be afflicted by materialistic life. Even though one desires to be liberated, this does not mean that he is liberated. And that gets to the next stage, which is a perfect sannyasi, that the person is a siddhyati, which is actually liberated. Prabhupada writes, only rarely is someone liberated. Indeed, although many men may take sannyas to become liberated, because of their imperfections, they can again become attached to women, material activities, social welfare, and so on. So, this verse, it establishes two things. It establishes the rarity of bhakti, and it also establishes the independence of bhakti. Right? So, bhakti has the ability to reverse all this order. For instance, in this particular pastime, we see that Indra is a demigod and Vritrasura is an asura. But Vritrasura has a superior position to Indra. Then we also see Indra with respect to Bali Maharaj. Indra is a demigod and Bali Maharaj is also an asura. Yet Bali Maharaj is a superior position. Then we see Durvasha with respect to Ambarish Maharaj. That Durvasha is a sannyasi and Ambarish is a grahastha, but Ambarish has a superior position. We see Hiranyakashipu with respect to Prahlad Maharaj. That Hiranyakashipu is a powerful yogi and Prahlad Maharaj has no mystic power, no karma, no gyan, no particular yogic powers, but yet he has a much superior position. Then you see the case of Gajendra, animal, right? Not even a human form of life, yet we're glorified as an advanced devotee. Um, Vishwanath Chakravarti has a has a very has a fairly extensive analysis uh, uh, on this, and I'm kind of thinking if it is worthwhile going into it. It runs into several pages actually. He looks at it from two different ways, and um, yeah, I think I'll skip it. It'll actually take the rest of the class, so I'll skip that part. Okay, so moving on uh, to verse 6. Vritrastu sa katham papa sarvalokapatapanah itham drudumati Krishna asit sangramul bane. Vritrasura was situated in the blazing fire of battle and was an infamous, sinful demon, always engaged in giving troubles and anxieties to others. How could such a demon become so greatly Krishna conscious? So Maharaj Parikshit, in the previous set of verses, has pointed to the rarity of bhakti. And as Prabhupada has pointed out, also indicates purity. And by talking about the ashrams, right? So it talks about the purity. So now Parikshit Maharaj is questioning that Vritrasura was an all-out demon, and uh, he wasn't a pious demon like like Prahlad Maharaj, um, um, or even Bali Maharaj, but he was like in the battlefield. He didn't have really much. He didn't have many. He didn't have a life before the battlefield, so to speak. So his character is being evaluated based on his actions in the battlefield. And there he was a pretty far out demon, right? He was killing people, and the devas trying to eat them up, etc. So how did this bhakti, which is very, very rare, which transcends the mode, manifest in one who is completely in the mode of ignorance? So Sukdev Parshil Maharaj, he points out three disqualifications in Vitrasur. So he says Papa, sinful. Right. So why is Vitrasur sinful? And Parshil Maharaj is applying the extrapolation of the law of karma. And like um, if you see somebody very strongly in the mode of ignorance, then you know it is because of their past sinful activities. Right. So he is applying that principle and saying, Papa, he is sinful. Sarvalok upattapana, that he is the cause of suffering in the three worlds. And asit sangram ulbane, that he is circumstantially situated in the mode of extreme passion. Right? So one may be asuric, but one may not engage in sinful activities. Right? So we have Vibhishan, asuric, right? He was born of brother of Ravan, but did not engage in any asuric activity, but not so with Vritrasur. So not only was Papa Sarvaloka Upatapana, he was giving trouble to the three worlds. Asit Sangrame Ulbani. He was killing people. He was trying to annihilate the the devas. Right? How could he be Dridamati Krishna? Right? Dridamati means firmly situated. His mind was firmly situated in Krishna. So Prabhupada writes that it has been described that a Narayana Parayana is a pure devotee, rarely found amongst millions and millions of persons. Therefore, Parishit Maharaj was surprised that Vritrasur, whose purpose was to give trouble and anxiety to others, was one of these devotees, even on the battlefield. What was the reason for Vritrasur's advancement? Verse 7 Atra na samshaya bhuyan shotram katuhalam prabho yah paurashena samare sahasraksham matoshaya. My dear Lord, Sukdev Goswami, although Vritrasur was a sinful demon, he showed the prowess of a most exalted Kshatriya and satisfied Lord Indra in battle. How could such a demon be a great devotee of Lord Krishna? These contradictions have caused me great doubt, and they have made me eager to hear of this from you. So, the verse is summarizing the doubts that have been presented by Parishit Maharaj in the past. Sinful demon, but exalted Kshatriya, right? Satisfies Indra, and great devotee of the Lord. So he was advanced both from a material perspective and a spiritual perspective. So why is he saying that he's an exalted Kshatriya? Because he was following the material code of dharma. When Indra dropped his weapon, Vritrasur did not attack him. He waited for him to pick it up. When the devas were attacking the demons while they were fleeing, he was chastising the devas and the demons also. Right. So, and he himself, even when he was hurt, he did not show his back in the battle. So he had very exalted material qualities, and he had very exalted spiritual qualities, and he was a sinful demon. So explain to me how this is there, right? So he's now asking Sukdev Goswami. Verse 8 Shri-Sutuvacha Parikshito Tatha Samprashnam Bhagavan Bhadrayanihi Nishamya Shadadanasya Pratinnandya Vacho Braveet. Sri Sukdev Goswami said, after hearing Maharaj Parikshit's very intelligent questions, Sri Sutta Goswami said, after hearing Maharaj Parikshit's very intelligent question, Sukadeva Goswami, the most powerful sage, began answering his disciple with great affection. So it is said that when the disciple asks intelligent question, the affection of the Guru increases. Because one, it indicates that the disciple is hearing attentively, and two, it indicates the presence of intelligence in the disciple, and it gives the Guru an opportunity to engage in Krishna Katha. Right? For this reason, Sukdev Goswami is regarding Maharaj Parishad with a lot of affection. Verse 9 Shri Sukvacha Shanusvavahito Rajan Itihasam imam yatha Shrutam dvapayana mukhan Narada devaladapi. Sri Sukdev Goswami said, O king, I shall speak to you the same history I have heard from the mouths of Vyasadev, Narad, and Deval. Please listen with attention. So now begins the narration of the pastime of Maharaj Chitraketu. Right? And this continues into pretty much the end of the sixth canto. Sixth canto has 19 verses, 19 chapters, and from here up till 16th, 17th chapter, we will see the narration of the pastime of Maharaj Chitraketu. So Sukdev Goswami says that by the mercy of Narad and Deval, and narrated by Srila Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva spoke about this pastime to them. Okay, so let's go to the next verse, verse 10. Asidraj Sarvbhauma Shorsena Vainrapa Chitraketu Khyatu Yasyasid Kamadunmahe. O King Parikshit, in the province of Shurasen, there was a king named Chitraketu who ruled the entire earth. During his reign, the earth produced all the necessities of life. So, the present day Kshetra of Surya Sen, the province of Shurasen, it corresponds roughly to the area around Mathura. Yeah, that is known as the area of Shurasen. Now, in this, we also have to kind of remember that that these pastimes did not happen in the age of Kali, right? So, the geographical areas may have different. The names may be same, but they may have different connotations, right? So like many times it's mentioned that Amrish Maharaj was the ruler of the Earth planet. But actually, Amrish Maharaj was the ruler of Bhumandal, of which the Earth planet was a very small portion. Right? He ruled the entire Bhumandal. And same thing for Lord Ram. Right? He did not just rule Ayodhya; he essentially ruled the Bhumandal as a whole. But the names are sometimes or not sometimes often the same. And Srila Prabhupada once said that somebody was asking this question: why do all these places appear in India? And was the geography the same? And Prabhupada said that it's the purpose of this pastimes is not so much to establish the accuracy of the geographical region. It's more to understand the churning of bhakti or the emotions or the lessons that come out of it. Right? That's more important. It's like a teacher is teaching in a class, and somebody spends a lot of time describing the classroom and the school and the area around the school. It's just a waste of time. Right? The more important thing is the lesson that's being taught. So here it's noted that during the reign of Maharaj Chitraketu, the earth produced all the necessities for life. Right. So we see that when Maharaj Vena was ruling the planet, then the earth planet was withholding the grains because of the prominence of adharma. Right? So the earth is not obliged to give anything, and it is following the directions of the Lord. Right? So in the Isha Upanishad mantra, Ishavasya Sarvam, right, it says that everything is belonging to the Lord. So when the ruler is not proper, then the praja also follows the ruler. and then the earth responds accordingly. So many times in the current day and age, it's said that we are living in an age of abundance, that there's so much food and whatever it is. But when we look at the effort that it is taking to extract that food, then it's a different picture that gets painted. Right? In Satyug, there was no need for cultivating because the earth automatically produced everything. In Treta Yuga, there was minimal effort that was needed. In Dwapar Yuga, there was cultivation that happened, but the response of the earth was abundant. In the age of Kali, it's Ugra Karma. Like, so there's so much of mechanization and GMO and petrol being burned, and so much of effort goes in. And then what we get is essentially it's a shadow. You get stuff which has already been depleted of all the vital um, ingredients. So sometimes scientists will make fun of traditional farming. I remember I was once, and this is many years ago, I was in school, and there was as part of school education, we had gone to the Institute of Agricultural Research, and then the person who was giving the speech, he was making fun of the traditional method of cultivation, and he was saying that people to even to this day, and this is now going many years ago, they were saying people to this day, they are using a plow and a bull. And when we go to them and we say that don't use the plow and the bull, but use a tractor, then these people say that when there is when one plow is running across the field, it's like there is a knife running across our heart. When your tractor runs, it will be running 20 plows around the field, and it's going to completely destroy our heart. Right? So in this way, he was making fun, but already we are seeing that the over mechanization of farming is essentially making the earth barren. So on this day, if you go and say that I want to buy to get something organic, you have to pay more money for it. Right? So it is non-GMO, without the use of fertilizers, etc. We have a farmers market close to our house where you see these people who are selling from the farm, and some of them are saying that we are going it completely natural, no machines, nothing there, and almost 3 to 4 times the price, and people are coming and buying. And so, who has the last laugh? Is it the farmer who was glorifying controlled farming, friendly with nature, or is it the people who are saying more machine, more GMO, more mechanization? And the trend will continue. Ultimately, the trend will continue for a healthier food that is naturally produced. So in this context, Srila Prabhupada also he makes this point that when the leaders are not properly situated, then the Brahmanas take control. Right. So gives the example of King Vena. Now, when King Vena was adharmic, the Brahmins took control. And then he makes this interesting point that when there are no qualified Brahmins to take control, then the devotee should take the initiative. Right. So he writes that in the Bhagavatam, it is said, Kamam Vavarsha Parjanya Sarvakam Dukamahi. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the clouds showered all the water that the people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of the men in profusion. Now, the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira was abnormality. right? So even though it was during Dwapar Yuga, it is said to be like Satyug because of the presence of Krishna and the presence of his devotee, right? But this is what happened during Satyug, that the rains would fall on time, there would not be abundant raining that causes flooding, and there were no drought, and the earth on its own produced all the necessities. And Prabhupada says that we have no control over the earth's productiveness, for it naturally falls under the control of the Lord. By his order, the Lord can make the earth produce sufficiently or insufficiently. Simply ruling the land cannot solve the man's problem unless the leader has spiritual capabilities. He must be like Maharaj Yudhishthir, Parshir Maharaj or Ramchandra. Then all the inhabitants of the land will be happy. Okay, verse 11. Tasya bharya saharshanam sahasrani dasabhavan shanta shantanikas chapi nrapo na lebeta shu santatim. This Chitraketu had 10 million wives. But although he was capable of producing children, he did not receive a child from any one of them. By chance, all the wives were barren. So Chitraketu was the original Karurpati. He was the husband of 1 crore wives. Right? And naturally, the implication also is that so assuming that he married every day, 1 crore corresponds to about 27,400 years. Right? And so he lived at least that long, if not longer. If he was marrying a wife every day, so we can understand by this that he came from a yuga where the lifespan was much longer than ours. It's not explicitly mentioned. Now, this verse also appears in the context of the previous verses that Chitraketu was pious. And how could we see that he was pious? Because of the influence of his rule. That under his dominion, the earth produced all the necessities for life. Right? So his rule is like that of Yudhishthira Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj, very, very pious. Now, what is the probability that he marries 10 million women and all of them are unable to produce children? Right? Very, very unlikely. But that's what happened to him. Verse 12. Rupadarivayo janma vidyeshvara shriyadibi sampanasya gunai sarves chinta bandya paterahut. Chitraketu, the husband of these millions of wives, was endowed with a beautiful form, magnanimity, and youth. He was born in a high family. He had a complete education and he was wealthy and opulent. Nevertheless, in spite of being endowed with all these assets, he was full of anxiety because he did not have a son. So, Sukdev Goswami is glorifying the 7 qualities he glorifies in Chitraketu. He says, Sampanasya Guna. Sampanasya means that these qualities were not there in traces in him. Sampanasya. In full, they were there. Rupa, beauty, Audarya, magnanimity. Then Vaya, youth, Janma, aristocratic birth, Vidya, education, Aishwarya, opulence, and Shriya, wealth. Right? And then he says, Adibi, that not just these 7, etc., etc., etc. Right? So why is he talking about these good qualities of Chitraketu? Because they appear by the dint of piety. Srila Prabhupada would say That if somebody has birth in a high family, somebody has wealth, somebody has beauty, it indicates past pious activities. So he has already established Chitraketu as a great king. Right now he is saying that not only in this life, in his previous life also, he must have performed a lot of good quality activities. So Parishar Maharaj was saying that Vritrasur was sinful. And the reason he was saying he's sinful was by looking at his present condition, he was interpolating his past life. So Sukhdev Goswami is doing the same thing for Chitraketu in the opposite way, saying that he was definitely very, very pious because the Rupa, Dharya, Bhaya, Janma Vidya, Aishwarya, Shriya, Adi, all these qualities were present in Sampanasya. Right? So 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 when the pastimes of great personalities are described, then they deliver messages at different levels. Excuse me. And the acharyas, they literally churn these pastimes to reveal the more hidden messages. Right? So we see that Lord Shiva, when he saw Mohini Murti, he became infatuated by her and started running after her. So what is the message that comes across right away? That even exalted personalities can be infected with lust. So that's the most obvious message that one can extract from this pastime. But what are some of the more latent messages? That when Lord Shiva perceived Mohini Murti, he looked upon her as Yogamaya, as the internal potency of Lord Krishna. Standing next to him was his wife, Parvati Devi, who is the embodiment of Mahamaya. And Lord Shiva, in the mood of a devotee, he ran away from Mahamaya towards Yogamaya, away from material conception to the spiritual conception. Right? One message that can be extracted. Another message, that Lord Shiva is Mahadeva. Lord Shiva is so famous for the control of his senses, and he was running after Mohini Murti, partial expansion of Krishna. So how great is Krishna? Right, so he's establishing the position of Krishna. Here yet another message, that when Lord Shiva was apparently insulted by Mohini Murti. Right, in the past time we see that Mohini Murti deliberately ran towards the places where there were people sitting worshipping Lord Shiva, people doing yoga, and they witnessed Lord Shiva running after this woman. And after the pastime, Lord Shiva turns to glorify Lord Vishnu, saying that this is actually the right thing that happened, because my Lord, you have shown to everyone how fallible we are and how infallible you are. Right? So another message is the mood of a devotee, that whether the Lord glorifies the devotee or whether the Lord embarrasses the devotee is still happy. So similarly, Chitraketu's condition has many messages that are coming through. So Chitraketu's condition is demonstrating that the nature of the mind is that it will not derive satisfaction from what it has, rather, it will hanker for what it does not have. So Chitraketu had so much. Great king, all this Aishwarya, Shriya, all this he has, but what was his situation? His situation was one of gloom, because he lamented for the one thing that he did not have, which was a son. Now, as a service to the praja, the king is supposed to provide a qualified heir to carry the tradition of the rule. For instance, when Swambhu Manu wanted to renounce, he could not renounce until he first convinced Priyavrata to take over the rule, and then only he left. So the son is not only one who carries forth the legacy of the parent, they also support the ancestors by continuing the tradition of Pindada, right? So Chitraketu's hankering for a son is not just a personal obsession, but also can be looked upon as a service to others, right? So we see the layering that is happening over here, right? So one is from a completely material perspective, that Chitraketu has so much, but is hankering for what he does not have. Like that's material greed. You have $1 million in your bank account, but you want the car that your neighbor has. Right? The one thing that you don't have, your mind goes after that. The second is a slightly more elevated perspective. I'm a king, so my duty to my praja is to have a heir. So slightly more exalted. And then the third is even more exalted. That not just my praja, but to my departed ancestors, then who will continue with the tradition of Pindada. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that that the Grahastha life is not meant for having a wife and having no children. Like Chanakya Pandit says, Putra hinam graham shunyam. If a family man has no son, his home is no better than a desert. The king was certainly most unhappy that he could not get a son, and this is why he married so many times. Kshatriyas especially are allowed to marry more than one wife, and this king did so. Nonetheless, he had no issue. Right? So the fault in Chitraketu was that he wanted to control destiny. So he married once, not able to have a child. Married second times, not able to have a child. Married 1,000,000 times, not able to have a child. So at some point he should have accepted the fact it is not in his fate to have a child. But what is Chitraketu doing? He's engaging in Ugra Karma. Like he's so infatuated by the thought of having a child that he just does not know where to stop. And that will be, we will see later on, that will be a cause of so much of suffering for him. Verse 13. न तस्य सम्पदः सर्वा महिष्यवामलोचनः सर्वभौमस्य भूश्चेयम् अभवन् प्रीतिहेतवः. His queens all had beautiful faces and attractive eyes. Yet neither his opulences, his hundreds and thousands of queens, nor the lands for which he was the supreme proprietor were sources of happiness for him. So the previous verse talked about the qualifications of Chitraketu. This verse talks about the opulence of his wife. Right? So it's not that he was marrying like old women who are not in their prime. So it's mentioned that they had beautiful faces, attractive eyes. The implication being that they themselves carried good karma with them, came from royal families, young women. Um, uh, he the point is made is that he was not satisfied with this with his um, with his wives because he could not have a son with them, right? So uh, there is some latent glorification of Chitraketu here, that if he was a lusty man, then just having union with so many beautiful women would have would have given him pleasure. But he was not a lusty person. So he was not simply satisfied in sexual intercourse with his beautiful wives. He was not an overly greedy person because he had a great kingdom. He was a supreme proprietor. Right? So, but he did not take pleasure in material opulences. But he was a dharmic person, right? Because he was disappointed at his inability to serve his people and to serve his ancestors, to follow the principle of dharma. Verse 14. तस्येकदा तु भवनम् अङ्गीरा भगवान् ऋषि लोकाननुचरन् एतान् upagachad yadrachaya. Once upon a time, when the powerful sage named Angira was traveling all over the universe without engagement, by his sweet will, he came to the palace of King Chitraketu. So this is the beginning of the mercy of the Lord to Chitraketu. Why is this the beginning of the mercy, even though there is so much suffering that comes? Because the end justifies the means. So Krishna sends his devotees to such fortunate persons. Why was Chitraketu the recipient of the Lord's mercy? So Sukadeva Goswami notes in this verse that Angira came yadrachaya. Yadrachaya means by his own free will. So it's not the mercy of the Lord per se, but the mercy of the devotee that made Chitraketu fortunate. And same principle that's followed, explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Madhuri Kadamani, that the Lord does not bestow bhakti. The devotees bestow bhakti. But once the devotees bestow bhakti, the Lord happily follows through. And so that's why the point is made yadracha. It's not that Angira was ordered by the Lord that you go to the place of Chitraketu, but out of his own free will. Right? At one place, the mercy of a devotee is described like a butterfly. So if you see a butterfly in a garden, it will sit on one flower and then it will go and skip so many other flowers and it will sit on another flower. Right? So there's the butterfly on its own free will is doing. Devotees are distributing books. There are 5 people sitting. They might skip 3 people, go to the fourth person, and the person's devotional life begins. So by the causeless mercy of the devotee. Okay, verse 15. Tam pujayitva vidvat pratyutanarhanadbhi कृतार्थयम् उपासीदात् sukhasinam samahitah. Chitraketu immediately stood up from his throne and offered him worship. He offered drinking water and eatables, and in this way performed his duty to a great guest. When the rishi was seated very comfortably, the king, restraining his mind and senses, sat on the ground on the side of rishi's feet. Right? So there are 6 things that Chitraketu does that demonstrates the Vedic way to receive guests. Right? The first thing it said, Vidhivat. So Vidhivat means that he received the guest according to what the Vedas say. So he did not like create a process that whimsically created, but Vidhivat, as per the Vedas. Then Pratyuthan, he immediately stood up to offer respect. Then Sukha Shina, he offered the guest an elevated place to sit. Then Krit Atithya, that he offered hospitality like water to drink and food to eat. Then Upasida means literally means sat down here, but it means that he was attentive to the guests, right? Not that the guest came and then he went away and went, did his own stuff, but he immediately came and sat close to the guest with full attention. And then the sixth is Samahita, controlling his mind and senses, which means that he immediately placed the needs of the guest higher than his own needs. Yeah, so your own mind and senses may want to take you somewhere, but when there is a guest in the house, then a proper host will follow the desires or the comforts of the comfort needs of the guest, right? So he controlled his mind and senses, waiting for how best to satisfy the needs of the guest. So standing up is a sign of respect, right? So we see in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam that when Sudama came, Krishna immediately stood up. When he was sitting on a throne, he immediately stood up. In the Ramayana, we see that when Vishwamitra came, Dasharatha was sitting on his throne, immediately he stood up. Again, in the 10th canto, when the Brahman carrying the letter of Rukmani Devi came in, Krishna immediately stood up, even though he was a Brahman boy. But Krishna immediately stood up and so it wasn't a Brahman boy, it was actually an aged Brahman, but Krishna immediately stood up to show respect. When Vidura came, then the Pandavas immediately they left their respective seats and ran towards Vidura. In the 4th canto, we see that when when the 4 Kumars came, then immediately Prithu Maharaj stood up, offered them a seat, and worshipped them. So, if nothing else, one should at least stand up to offer respect. Right? That's the point that is made, is at least that much, and hopefully more. Give the person a place to sit. At least inquire about food it's kind of interesting. It's more of a East-West kind of a thing. In Indian culture, you very rarely inquire from a person whether you need anything to eat or drink. You automatically offer it. The person may or may not take it, but asking is considered to be a sign of being low class. Like you go to somebody and say that. I remember once my mother was very upset at my sister. Some guests came, and my sister asked them that would you like anything to eat? And of course, what did they say? No. And then my mother was saying that you should not treat them like beggars. That if you're asking them, do you want anything to eat? You think that they have no food in their house. You should immediately offer food. Right? So that was the more traditional way. Here, there's things are a little bit different. You generally ask a person. Even the devotees, they're more traditional. They will also tend to offer and rely on whatever the guest wants to do. So the general consideration is samahita. Samahita is that the needs of the guest are placed above your own needs. Okay, we'll do one more verse, and then after that we'll conclude the discussion, and we can have a few minutes for any questions or thoughts. Verse 16. Maharishtam upasinam prashrayavantam kshitau pratipujya maharaja samabhasyadam abhrave. O King Parikshit, when Chitraketu bent low in humility, was seated at the lotus feet of the great sage. The great sage congratulated him for his humility and hospitality. The sage addressed him in the following word. Right? So the previous verse spoke about the hospitality of the king. This verse speaks about the humility of the king. Right? So it is said that Prashraya Avantam Kshitav, that he was bent low in humility. So when Chitraketu offered, so while Chitraketu was offering puja, then Angira was offering what is known as Pratipuja. So Pratipuja is reciprocal worship. And as per the status, so Angira was at a much more exalted status, like being a sannyasi and a rishi. So according to that status, Chitraketu offered puja to Angira Rishi. Angira Rishi offered puja to Chitraketu by acknowledging his humility and hospitality. And so, between a guru and a disciple offers the guru by serving, and the guru will also acknowledge the disciple by pointing out the good qualities and also areas for improvement. Right. So that is the Prati Puja. That way the relationship is nourished both ways. Okay, so I'll end over here. After this, we have Angira Vacha. We'll do that next week. So if you have any questions or comments, we can spend a few minutes on that.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I don't know if you can hear me properly. Why the story of Chitraketu come afterwards? That means before he was cursed and then become a demon, and then now we start hearing his previous life. Why the order is like that? Normally, most of the story they start from the beginning and then flow.
It's a good question. So I don't know the specific answer, but at least the way I felt was when I was going through it was it kind of increased your excitement. That now all of us know this pastime, so we already have a sneak preview into the chapters that are coming. But when you read it for the first time, then it's amazing that Vitrasur is appearing and Vitrasur is preaching to Indra. So all your curiosity, your the same thing that Maharaj Parikshit was demonstrating. That is completely that is increased a lot, and then your mind is open to the pastime that comes through. And like I mentioned, that Chitraketu's pastime is the second longest pastime in the Bhagavatam. And as we'll see later on, one that is replete with so many. I mean, we have just done the part one of the pastime, which is kind of epilogue as a prologue, and we've already seen so many lessons coming in. As we go through, now we are going linearly from Chitraketu to becoming the head of the Vidyadharas. So many more lessons will come in. So it's been very strategically constructed because of its importance, right? The only other pastime that is longer than Chitraketu's pastime, or let me see if anybody can take a guess. Which other pastime in the Bhagavatam is longer than this pastime of Chitraketu?
Krishna's pastimes as a whole, Prabhuji, like in 10th canto.
Okay.
What about Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, that whole seventh canto
Yeah.
to Prahlad Maharaj?
Yeah. Well, Hinaksh is not included, but yes, Prahlad Maharaj's pastime, that actually spans more verses than Chitraketu. And the commentators say that if you just consider it from this perspective, that Sukadeva Goswami is so attracted to the pastime because of what the lessons that are coming through it. These are the two pastimes that the acharyas speak the most about, that they comment the most also. So special, very, very special pastimes.
Prabhuji, this kind of impact narration is there in Gajendra's pastime also, right, Prabhuji? Like flashback kind of telling. First,
Starting from the end, right? Yeah, it doesn't start at the end, but yeah, it kind of starts towards the. It starts with Gajendra, and then it goes back to Indra Sumna. Yeah, yeah, and then I think it's the same sense that you look at the elephant with such a wonderful progress, and you're curious, how did this elephant become so powerful, right? And then the pastime of Maharaj Indradumna unfolds after that.
yeah, it looks like a movie flashback.
Looks like a movie, yeah. So technically, it is known as epilogue as a prologue. So epilogue is the conclusion, and prologue is the beginning.
Oh, okay.
So it's a writing style that authors follow. And many times, not many times, but depending on they start off with with a person lying in bed, ready to die, surrounded by family, and then it says, it goes then into the past of the how did he come, right? So it's one of the writing techniques to attract the attention of the readers.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no more questions. We'll end here. Thank you so much. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। हाय गौर प्रेमानंद।